Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. And welcome to you if you've just found me. It's wonderful that you're here, that you found me somehow through the mysteries and magics of the connectedness of our internet universe and all those things, or even word of mouth. You never know. Sometimes that still happens. And also welcome back if you're a regular. As ever, I so appreciate you taking the time to be with me every week and listen to my pontifications. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're listening to this, whatever podcast platform you're on. There'll be some way somewhere on there to hit that subscribe button so you get notified each week when these episodes go live. And that's a fabulous thing. Also, I'd love it if you would leave a review. Let me know. Give me those 5 stars or whatever feels appropriate to you. And also, as I often like to mention, you can message me. We have a system where you can leave a voice message for me. And on that note, I have an announcement. I'm very pleased with myself because this week I have set up the Be a Brilliant Human website. Dun, dun, dun. It's very simple. It's the name of the podcast, Be a Brilliant Human, with a .com on the end. So the purpose of this is to give you a place you can go to get the show notes. It's like Show Notes Plus, because wherever you're listening to this, normally there's a place for text description of what's going on. But the website will have for each episode a sort of more detailed notes and even transcriptions. Yes, transcriptions of the entire podcast. But really, I wanted to have an easy place for you to access everything. So all the links to all the different podcast platforms are there. And each episode, it's very simple. If you want to get to the notes for a particular episode, you just do beabrillianthuman.com// and then the number of the episode. So if you want to go back to episode 1, it would be beabrillianthuman.com/1. It's that simple. And also, but one thing I know from my podcast experience is sometimes I think there was that episode. I wonder what it was, and I might not know the number of the episodes. You can just go there to beabrillianthuman.com, go to the episodes tab, and then type in the search, whatever you remember about it, and it should hopefully come up with a couple of options of which episode it might be, and you can listen again. So on each of the episode pages, there is, you can listen to it right there. I've got because I use the platform anchor.fm, as you know, probably, unless you're new. If you're new, did you know? I thought I'd tell you I use the anchor.fm place to record and put out my podcast, but I've embedded the audio from there into each of those pages so you can listen right there. And it is an evolving process, that website. So right now, I think most of the descriptions are what you've got already. But over this next week, I'll be uploading the transcriptions and doing more sort of detailed sort of bullet points of the notes of each show. Because I know, again, for me, sometimes you listen to a show, there's a lot of information. It's very auditory. I go quite fast. So it's quite good sometimes to look at the notes and just get a breakdown of some of the key points. And also then on some of the pages, if I'm talking about a specific thing, then links to what I've referenced will be there on the pages. Plus, on the homepage, if you just go to beabrillianthuman.com, if you scroll down a bit, I've also got sort of resources that I mention again and again. So there's links there to my one-to-one coaching. There's links to the MPA sheet, the free sheet, and also links right now to the Boundary Bootcamp waitlist, which is coming early next year. Are you excited yet? So there we go. So this month we're in December, episode 9 in December. And it's kind of Christmas month. So I was thinking about, what shall I do in December? And I thought, well, why don't I go with the Christmas theme? And so each week, there's 5 weeks, 5 Tuesdays in December. So over the next 4, we'll be focusing on Christmas in general, then on the 5th one, which will be actually New Year's Eve. I'm going to talk a bit about visioning as we're going into the new year. So I thought I'd start this week with the dandy title of Presents and Presents. So it's auditory. You can't, hopefully somewhere you've seen the written form, but it's presents as in gifts and presents as in being present. So that's what we're talking about. And I've called it a real gift this Christmas because I'm going to be really focusing on presents itself. So my question to you is, what's more important to you? Is it stuff or is it experiences? Now, gifts are great, and especially when you're a kid. I mean, when I was like sort of, I don't know, between 3 and 10, probably, I would go mad on Christmas morning. In our household, we had stockings, and the rule in the house was that if you got up early, you could open your stocking, but you couldn't open the presents until later, the wrapped presents. But I sometimes would get up, and I was a kid who liked to sleep, right? But on Christmas Eve, sleeping was horrible, going to bed and then so excited. And I'd wake up at like 4 a.m., rush downstairs, and Mum had probably just gone to bed, having filled the stockings and done all the mad things that mums do on Christmas Eve. So I could open my stocking at 4 a.m. and it was such a thrill. So I'm not knocking gifts. I mean, they're wonderful. And also, some people, I think I've talked before about the 5 love languages. But one of the love languages, which is how we sort of ways that we interpret love, is gift giving. So gift giving is a love language. So if you're one of those people that means love, then gifts are going to be probably more to you than people that don't have that love language. But I think it's fair to say that as you get older and sort of accumulate more stuff, gifts or things become much less important than they used to be. And what starts to matter more is time with those that matter, making memories. I mean, these days, my excitement around Christmas are more things like seeing my daughter. I mean, with my daughter, we still have fun with gifts. I mean, we do. We love that part of it. But really, it's seeing her and having quality present moments that gives me that sort of excitement and the anticipation around sort of the Christmas festivities. And chances are, if you listen to this podcast, which is a conscious living podcast, then I'm probably to some degree preaching to the converted. But I thought I'd hone in on presence itself, the art of being fully present. And in this episode, particularly with Christmas coming and all the festivities, the holiday season and all that stuff, then especially I wanted to focus on some things that arise around the festive season. So let's dive in. So should and never are words that, I'll rarely use. And I'm still going to say that you should never underestimate the power of being truly present with someone or something, including yourself. There's some interesting things about presence. So you can't fake presence. You just can't. You can't fake it, and you can't do. I'm doing the air quotes, so you can't do presence. You can't half bake it, and you can't multitask presence. Either you're present or you're not. And true presence, really, it's empty mind. It's single focused. It's right here, right now. It's agenda-free awareness available to the full spectrum of life experience. And it has a power to it, presence does. It's like there's a seductive magic to it that can untie the knottiest knot. It can bring life to the inanimate and melt the iciest of hearts. In a way, presence is like a deep intimacy with what is. And when you look at anything with pure presence, it sort of willingly unfurls its petals, revealing its intricacies, its rhythms, and its mysteries. But that's a bold statement to make about presence, and that's kind of like full ideal presence. But let me give you some examples of my experience of the power of presence. So when my granny was alive, the last 20 years of her life, she had Alzheimer's, which is a horrible disease. And if you've ever experienced it, you'll understand this. Towards the later years, she really wasn't there at all in some sense. But earlier on, when it was sort of setting in, she would have this experience of going in a loop. So she would ask a question and then you'd answer it, and then she just asked the question again. And in her world, it was clear that she hadn't asked it already. So there'd be this loop with the same question going over and over and over. And what I found was that some people in the family had a hard time with it for all sorts of reasons. It is difficult to deal with, and they get frustrated, and the loop would just get worse and worse and worse. But I decided that I would just be really present. I kind of made it a game. The game was, if I'm going to be asked the same question again and again and again, what if I answered it anew every time? What if I tried variations of the answer? And so I was able to become present to her, and stay in the stillness of presence with myself. But a really interesting and unexpected thing happened. I'd find that she'd go through the loop maybe 5, maybe 10 times. And then suddenly it was as if she dropped. And then she started to go into talking about stories of when she was younger and things that I'd never heard, from her history, from the war, from her experiences when she was a child. And she just sort of go into this story and start telling me things that I'd never heard, which was, in a way, it opened that door, that gate to something that was didn't seem possible. And then she would go back into the loop, and then maybe a few times. But I always attributed that opening to my willingness to be present to that experience rather than getting frustrated. So that's one example that I have. And the other one is I want to talk about the impact of presence as it shows up in performance or with performers. So this is kind of inspired by what I did on Sunday. On Sunday, I went with my neighbours. I've mentioned Beth and a good fella, Al. Hi, Beth and Al. I know you listen. Second shout out. You're doing well. And but what happened was I was invited to go to this event. It was a charity event, and I'll tell you a bit about the story of what the charity was for, just because it's a moving story. But basically, Beth, who has been on the piano, and a piano teacher, was part of organising this event, and it was basically a bunch of his students who were performing to raise money for James. And James, a little 3.5 years old little lad, he was deprived of oxygen when he was born and ended up with cerebral palsy, which means that he can't talk. And his parents have had a device on loan that allows him to communicate with eye movement. There's this very clever devices where they can use eye movement to communicate what they want, the decisions they make. But unfortunately, with the funding and the NHS, it's a short-term loan, and the NHS are going to take this machine back. So the event was to raise money to buy a machine for James, which will obviously make a huge difference to his quality of life. So, by the way, I have asked if there's a link. If there is a link, I will put it in the show notes. You'll be able to find that at beabrillianthuman.com/9. Do you feel moved by that and want to contribute to James's fund so he can get his machine? Then look out for that. At the moment, I don't have it, but if I do have it at some point, I will mention it if it comes along in a future podcast. And you'll be able to find that if you want to donate some money towards that machine to change the potential for James's life. Anyway, so there was this concert, and I was invited to go along. So I did. So me, Beth, and her partner Al, we all went along and to this event. Now it's interesting because I wanted to talk about what I observed. So let's put this in context. This is not the X Factor, this event. It's really students, so there's beginners and more advanced people. And I looked on Facebook and it said, like 12 people are going to this event. We walked in the room, there's like 50 to 100 people in this room. I was like, oh my God. And Beth, who hasn't performed before and sung in public before in that way was like naturally going, oh shit. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody who got up on that stage was an absolute winner just for doing that. But I did notice something watching the performance in terms of the impact of presence. So there was a qualitative difference in certain performances and on the effect that it had on the audience. And what I noticed, it was where there was fear showing up or really strongly showing up in someone, it made a difference. So like mostly I imagine that the fears were thoughts of, what's the audience thinking? Are they hating me? Or negative self-projections, like fueled by the fear. If you think about it, when you're on stage, physically you're on stage, but you're out there in the audience worrying what they might think or, doing the comparative thing. Then you're out there, you're not on the stage. So who's on the stage? In a sense, kind of nobody, or at least only part of you. And so when you're not in you, this is the presence thing. If you're not connected to yourself, then things don't tend to run so smoothly, and the quality of transmission tends to decrease. So when you're not present to any task, whether it's performance or whatever, when you're not present, then sort of things get tripped up. So I think a lot of people that were in that performance, you could see them shaking and all the rest of it. And it was a wonderful, warm audience, and all the performances were brilliant. But I'm pointing to what I noticed was the difference between some who were present and some who were not. And those that were more present tended to project themselves, or things just ran more smoothly for them. And also, the performance is a good example because we will understand how an audience catches the vibe. So, and all top performers, if you go to a concert or somewhere, they're totally present. So it's not a performance as in pretending. It's like they're totally there. They're in the performance. You could say they are being the performance itself. So the point is that presence has a power to it. And it impacts those that witness it. And fear and projection, as in imagining what others are experiencing, tends to compromise the presence. It sort of impacts the energy that you put out and therefore the energy that's received. So in a way, the more present the performer was, the better the experience for them and the better the experience for the audience. So you're probably wondering at this point, how does all this relate to me and to the Christmas period? Well, let's talk about that then. Okay, so let's focus on those family gatherings over Christmas, shall we? So in an ideal world, you'd be fully present with the people you spend time with over Christmas. And you'll be saying, well, these are people I avoid seeing for a large portion of the year. But hopefully I've established that your presence is a gift, not only to them, but it's a gift to yourself because the experience is better all round. So let's talk about some of the blocks to presence that are kind of prevalent in our very busy and I could say somewhat psychologically confused culture. So my top 3 culprits are duty, resistance, and distraction. So let's start with duty. Now, for the most part, duty visits are a recipe for non-presence. Why? Because the sponsoring thought, for the most part, with a duty visit is that you're doing it because you have to rather than you want to. So some part of you feels a sense of resentment. So you're not fully there. You're in the resentment. And that resentment sets you up for the second one, which is resistance. So especially around Christmas and these gatherings, a common sort of point of resistance is that fear, because in a way resistance is the fear. It's the fear of those sort of habitual issues, those things that come up. So for example, in your mind might be going, oh my God, Mum and Dad are going to get into an argument about the parsnips again. Or maybe it's like, oh my God, Uncle Tony is going to be horribly drunk and say something unbelievably insensitive and appropriate again. Or maybe it's, oh my God, Grandpa's going to be dribbling and farting all through dinner, which makes the kids feel sick. And oh no. Or it's the classic, I'm going to want to kill my sister 10 minutes after we walk through the door. Why? because, well, you know what she's like. So it all kind of boils down to that fear of sort of feeling fear of what you're going to feel if something happens that actually hasn't happened yet. And yes, maybe there's historic proof of the pattern of events, but chances are that you had those fears last year. And fear, as we learned from my performance example, saps your presence. It makes you not there, not even with you, and therefore you're not functioning, you're not expressing or receiving at your optimum, and certainly not in that magic zone where something different and wonderful could happen. And naturally, that resistance fuels the temptation to distraction. So let's talk about distraction. One word: phones. Oh, that's like the sort of in your pocket, handy bendy available point of distraction. Social media, those solo games, all of that stuff you can just hide away in, which of course means that you're not present at all. And then, of course, there's the distraction of things that don't matter. So, of course, what doesn't matter and what does matter is a matter of personal choice. It's a subjective thing. But, perhaps you know what I'm talking about here. It's like those gatherings where you come away feeling like, you don't really know anyone any better. But if it's the office party rather than a family gathering, you come away none the wiser about anybody. You've gone through the motions. You're distracted by the routine, by the polite, by the withheld heart. And you haven't really fully and sort of heartfully engaged with anyone. So again, having your mind or your energy elsewhere or caught up in some resistant thoughts or background text conversation is not presence. These are states of non-presence. You are not there. You're trapped in, effectively what you're doing is you're trapped in a half-hearted, half-selfed experience. And you, my beloved listener, deserve better than that this Christmas. So let's imagine what's possible with presence. So, have I mentioned this already? Presence has a magic to it. So just like with my granny, the presence that was there was somehow able to break through the seemingly unbreakable loop. So if you think about these family gatherings, so what you think is a well-trodden and seemingly unchangeable annual experience, now with the power of presence, you could open into the most unexpected and delightful places. You could open a doorway, open that portal, both in them and in you. And just like the performance example, presence or non-presence is contagious. The audience would catch the vibe and feel it. So have you ever noticed that when there's one truly present person in a crowd, they're like a beacon, they're like a magnet, they're a shining light. And if you have an interaction with them, somehow you come away feeling enlivened and more present yourself. So imagine if you could bring the gift of that this Christmas. That's the gift of presence this Christmas. If you could light that fire under the old dynamic, well then, my friend, who knows what might unfold. So now you might say, that's all well and good, Joel, but how do I conjure up presence when a large portion of me is already groaning at the prospect? Well, there is a way, and the route to presence, write this one down. The route to presence is finding that place in you where choosing to be there and choosing you align. So another way to say that is find your congruent why. Why are you choosing to be there? And because I have to is not going to cut it here. It's not. That's what you've already been telling yourself. That's not an answer. That's not a congruent answer that's going to activate presence within you. I mean, finding a reason that genuinely feels true, aligned, and good to you. So another example for you. So early in my relationship with the mother of my daughter, who's now 23, a long time ago now. Now, she was sort of, she will say herself, I'm sure, that she takes a long time to do shopping. Okay, so we went bra shopping for a bra, and long story short, it took 4 hours for her to pick a bra. Now, ladies out there, you might say, yeah, 4 hours, that's perfectly normal. But remember, I'm a bloke, okay? And at the time, stereotypically, I was a bloke who was not the biggest fan of shopping. So it was not a situation that I naturally enjoyed. But I think I realized on that day, I realized it was going to be a long time, and that I had a decision to make, basically. So I could either just bitch about it in my head and have a miserable time, option one. I could strop off, that's it, I'm off. Bugger you, option two. Or I could find a way to really be there. So she was obviously went for option three here. So she was in the changing room. So I decided that, things were going on. Like there were shop assistants, they were pulling things off rails, all this kind of thing. And I thought, well, I might as well discover what this whole shopping thing is about. It was like it was in my head. Well, people do shop for a long time. They seem to enjoy it. I don't, but there must be a reason. There must be something to it. So I decided to go into that discovery mode and decide, what's it all about. So I literally got up, went across to one of the shop assistants, and I think I literally asked her, so what is this shopping thing about? And I think she was quite amazed. But what I learned that day was that it's about colors, it's about shapes, it's about exploring, and it's about experimenting. And different people have different colors that work for them, different shapes and different clothes that work. And actually, it's more of an adventure. So I basically learned to shop on that day. And nowadays, my daughter will take me shopping. So I love it when you come shopping with me, Dad, because I'm there and I'll go around and I'll find things. I know my daughter's colors, I know her shapes, I know what suits her, what doesn't, and I'm willing to experiment and just have fun with it. I genuinely enjoy it. And subsequent partners that I've had, over the years, regularly have been amazed. We go shopping for the first time, that they take their man shopping to discover he's actually enthusiastic, he's actually involved, and pretty handy at it as well. So here's the point of this: is on that day I found my congruent why. I could have stayed there under duty. Be a good boyfriend, sit and be miserable, play on your phone. Although at that time we didn't have phones. But I found my congruent why I was choosing to be there. And that's how and then the magic happened. And to this day, that has continued to be a benefit for me. I love shopping with the women in my life, and I love shopping for myself, which I probably could have to this day have been just another grumpy bloke who sits in the corner looking miserable. And when the woman comes out, just goes, yeah, looks nice, without any conviction, rather than going, not quite, doesn't quite suit you. Oh, I went a bit camp there, didn't I? Oh, it doesn't quite suit you. Stepping into my feminine. So there we go. But that was the point. I found my congruent why. And it was the same with Granny when I think about it, because again, being asked the same question 15 times in a row isn't naturally a joy. But again, if you recall, I literally decided to make it a practice of presence. And something beautiful unfolded. Again, I found my congruent why. So I went from what, again, would have been a duty visit, oh, Granny's not well, got to go and visit her, to something where I could be fully present. And from that, I got to hear things about her life and about my family that I maybe never would have heard. I got connection with her in a way that I never would have experienced. So that was from finding the congruent why, which allowed me to be present. So this Christmas, my beloved listener, if there's a gathering that you feel duty-bound to attend or feel trepidatious about, then my invitation to you is to take some time to contemplate what your congruent why might be. So I have a little bonus suggestion for you here, because I know sometimes you can ask yourself that question and you kind of sow in the fog of what seems impossible that you end up just scratching your head and going, whatevs, right? So I don't want that for you. I want to give you a way that you can sort of work with that. And I'm going to offer you a way to use the MPA process to sort of support you in finding your congruent why. So, I mean, if you're able to just sit and find your answer, then brilliant. Jobs are good and you got it. But if it ain't coming easy, then I want you to go and download the MPA sheet. As ever, it's free. You can get it easily at beabrillianthuman.com. If you want to go straight there, beabrillianthuman.com/NPA sheet. That's MPA. I've lost the mnemonic. I've said it so many times. Something Papa Alpha. What's N? November. Thank you. November Papa Alpha. It's because we're in December. That's what it is. So beabrillianthuman.com/ NPA sheet will get you straight there. Or you just go to the homepage, beabrillianthuman.com. And you'll see it there. There's a link towards the bottom of that page, and you can find it. You can download it. I'll send it straight to you. Now, the MPA process is, and I haven't really talked much about it so far on this podcast. I probably ought to at some point do a sort of full disclosure on MPA, but I haven't. But if you download the sheet, you'll notice it's a 6-line spoken word process. You'll see there's 6 lines there, and in the lines there's some blank spaces where you would put what I call the cookie cutters or the keywords into the space. Now, there's a whole process normally where you find what is a connected cookie cutter, what is a keyword that's alive in you. But for the purposes of this and just trying it out, and if you haven't done a lot of MPA or haven't done any MPA, it's a good way to start. So I'm going to suggest the cookie cutter, the thing that you put in that blank space. So what you can put in there is literally congruent Y. So what you do is you get the sheet, you'd put congruent Y in all the spaces, then you'd read the whole thing, say it out loud, and then just let it go. Now, what you might experience there with MPA, this is true, whatever the thing is you're working on, sometimes you might have an aha or a moment, or you might get some physical sensations happening. You might find that the answer just, boom, it just comes to you, or you might feel nothing, and that's okay too, because what really you're doing with the MPA process is you're greasing the wheels, really. You're dropping the resistance and opening the doors so that the answer can come and find you. So if you think that'll help, if you're having a hard time, go do it now. Go and download the process sheet. Not only will it help you with this, getting your Christmas straight, but in so many other ways as well. So again, it's beabrillianthuman.com. You can go there, you'll find the link, or .com/NPA sheet. So there we go. That's me for today. Thank you so much as ever for listening. I hope this episode got you off to a good start this December. Perhaps gives you another dimension on your preparations for Christmas. Again, I so appreciate you subscribing. Send me a message. What do you want me to talk about? Just offer some feedback. Just say hi. Go on, someone. Just do it. Hit that button and say, hi, Joel. I thought I would leave you a message. That would be cool. I need feedback. Also, I'm going to ask for, what do I want for Christmas? Well, I'd love for Christmas is for you to share. Well, send me a message, subscribe, do all that stuff. But I'd love you to share the show. There's definitely ways you can share it, because if you enjoy it, then it's great to share it with your friends. There's several ways you can do that. On Facebook, you can come to MPA Rocks. That's the MPA page, which is facebook.com/NPA Rocks. And I always put posts up around the time of each episode going out. So you can find one of those and just click share. Or if you're someone who listens to this on YouTube, or if you don't, you can go onto YouTube. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/Joel Young. Very simple. It's called the Be a Brilliant Human channel there. And find one of the videos. It's basically a picture with a moving audio wave and the recording put over the top. And you can share that onto Twitter, onto different places. And you can also just share the new website. Why not share the new website? I didn't think of that. It's beabrillianthuman.com. Just put that in, share it. Or if you want to share a specific episode, again, you can use that thing, beabrillianthuman.com/episode number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whichever one you want to do. And one of the things when you share this kind of thing, and it would really, really help me, is tell your folks why you love it. Why are you sharing it? And why do you think they'll benefit from listening? It's one thing to just share it, and that's great if you do that. But if you share it with a why, to sort of, a congruent present why you think they'll love it, why you think it would be good for them to listen, that's a great encouragement to people to actually click that link and check us out. And of course, as ever, it's a busy time, stressful time, or can be a stressful time. Certainly if you've got something going on, it can heighten it with Christmas and all that stuff. Then of course, you can come and investigate a one-to-one or one-to-one sessions with me. As you know, you can go to joelyoungmpa.com/sessions, or again, if you're on beabrillianthuman.com, there's at the top on the menu, there's a thing that says sessions. You can click there, or in the resources section, there's a sessions link there as well. And remember, you can book a 10-minute free session with me if you're interested. happy just to chat with you for 10 minutes, check it's a fit for you, find out what's going on and see how I can help you. And as ever, just go ahead and download that MPA sheet if you haven't already done it. And if you have already got MPA, then just and you're having a hard time with your congruent Y, do that exercise, do what it is. So next week, we're continuing the theme. So next week, I'm going to be sharing 14 festive FUBARs you just shouldn't take personally. So I will see you next week. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here. And let's cue the moo.